I never mentioned my $40,000 monthly salary to my son, even though he always saw me living a simple, unassuming life. One day, he invited me to dinner with his wife's parents, who were visiting from abroad. I decided to find out how they would treat someone they thought was poor by pretending to be a broke and naive mother. But the moment I walked through the door of that restaurant, everything shifted. What happened that night shattered my daughter in law and her family in ways they never expected. And believe me, they had it coming. Let me walk you through how I got there. Let me tell you who I truly am. Because my son Marcus, now 35 years old, had no idea about the real story of his mother. To him, I was simply the woman who left early for the office, returned home tired each evening, cooked whatever was available in the fridge, just another ordinary employee, maybe a secretary, someone plain and unremarkable. And I never corrected him. I never revealed that I earned $40,000 every single month, that I had been a senior executive at a multinational corporation for nearly 20 years, signing multi-million dollar contracts and making decisions that impacted thousands of lives. Why would I? Money was never something I felt the need to display like a trophy on the wall. I grew up in a time when dignity was carried quietly inside, when silence held more value than empty boasts. So I kept my truth guarded. I stayed in the same modest apartment for years. I carried the same leather handbag until it fell apart. I bought clothes from discount stores, cooked at home, saved every penny, invested wisely, and grew wealthy in complete silence. Because real power doesn't need to shout. Real power simply observes. And I was observing very carefully when Marcus called me that Tuesday afternoon. His voice sounded off, nervous the way it did when he was a child and had done something wrong. Mom, I need to ask you a favor. Simone's parents are visiting from overseas. It's their first time here. They want to meet you. We're having dinner on Saturday at a restaurant. Please come. Something in his tone unsettled me. It wasn't the voice of a son simply inviting his mother. It was the voice of someone afraid of being embarrassed, someone desperate to fit in and make a good impression. Do they know anything about me? I asked calmly. There was a pause. Then Marcus stammered, I told them you work in an office, that you live alone, that you're simple, that you don't have much. There it was, the word simple. As if my entire life could be reduced to that pitiful label. As if I were some problem he needed to apologize for. I took a long, deep breath. Okay, Marcus, I'll be there. I hung up and looked around my living room. Old but comfortable furniture, walls without expensive art, a small TV, nothing that would impress a soul. And right then, I made up my mind. If my son thought I was a poor woman, and if his wife's parents were arriving ready to judge, then I would give them exactly what they expected. I would pretend to be broke, naive, and barely getting by, a mother struggling to survive. I wanted to experience firsthand how they treated someone with nothing. I wanted to see their real faces because I had a strong suspicion. I suspected that Simone and her family were the kind of people who judged others solely by their bank accounts. And my instincts are rarely wrong. Saturday came. I dressed in the shabbiest outfit I owned, a light gray, shapeless, wrinkled dress, the type you find in a thrift store. Old, worn out shoes, no jewelry, not even a watch. I grabbed a faded canvas tote bag, pulled my hair into a messy ponytail, and checked myself in the mirror. I looked like a woman worn down by life. Forgettable. Perfect. I took a taxi and gave the driver the address, a high-end restaurant in the city's most exclusive district, the kind where menus don't show prices and each table setting costs more than most people's monthly salary. As we drove, I felt a strange mix of anticipation and sadness. Anticipation because I sensed something significant was about to unfold. Sadness because a part of me still hoped I was wrong. I hoped they would treat me kindly, that they would look beyond the old clothes. But the other part, the one that had spent 40 years navigating corporate sharks, knew precisely what awaited me. The taxi pulled up in front of the restaurant. Warm lights glowed. A doorman in white gloves stood ready, and elegant guests entered. I paid, stepped out, took a deep breath, crossed the threshold, and there they were. Marcus stood beside a long table near the windows, wearing a dark suit, white shirt, and shiny shoes. He looked anxious. Next to him was Simone, my daughter in law, in a tailored cream dress with gold accents, high heels, her perfectly straight hair cascading over her shoulders. She looked flawless as always, but she wasn't looking at me. She was staring toward the entrance with a tense, almost embarrassed expression. And then I saw them, Simone's parents, already seated at the table like royalty on their thrones. The mother, Veronica, wore a fitted emerald green dress covered in sequins, with jewels adorning her neck, wrists, and fingers. Her dark hair was styled in an elegant bun. She possessed that cold, calculated beauty that can intimidate. Beside her sat Franklin, her husband, in an immaculate gray suit, a massive watch on his wrist, and a stern expression. Both looked as if they had stepped straight out of a luxury magazine. I walked toward them slowly with small, hesitant steps, as if I were nervous. Marcus spotted me first and his face shifted. His eyes widened as he looked me up and down. I saw him swallow hard. Mom, you came. His voice sounded strained. Of course, son. Here I am. I smiled timidly, the smile of a woman unused to such elegant surroundings. Simone greeted me with a quick, cold kiss on the cheek, mechanical. Mother-in-law, it's nice to see you. Her eyes told a different story. She introduced me to her parents in an odd, almost apologetic tone. Dad, Mom, this is Marcus's mother. Veronica looked up, studied me, and in that instant I saw it all, the judgment, the disdain, the disappointment. Her eyes swept over my wrinkled dress, my old shoes, my canvas tote. She said nothing at first, simply extended a hand, cold, brief, and limp. A pleasure. Franklin did the same, a weak handshake and a fake smile. I sat in the chair at the far end of the table, the one farthest from them, as if I were a second-class guest. No one pulled out my chair. No one asked if I was comfortable. The waiter arrived with heavy, elegant menus written in French. I opened mine and pretended to understand nothing. Veronica watched me. Do you need help with the menu? She asked, her smile not reaching her eyes. Yes, please, I don't know what these words mean. My voice came out small and timid. She sighed and ordered for me. Something simple, she said. Something that doesn't cost too much. We don't want to overdo it. The words lingered in the air. Franklin nodded. Marcus looked away. Simone fiddled with her napkin. No one spoke, and I simply observed. Veronica began talking about ordinary things, the flight from abroad, how tiring it had been, how different everything felt here. Then she smoothly steered the conversation toward money. She mentioned their hotel at $1,000 a night, the luxury car they had rented, the stores they had visited. We bought a few things, nothing major, just a few thousand. She spoke while looking at me, clearly expecting a reaction, expecting me to be impressed. I just nodded. How nice, I said. That's lovely, so she continued. You know, we've always been very careful with money. We worked hard. We invested wisely. Now we have properties in 3 countries. Franklin has major businesses, and I oversee our investments. She smiled with clear superiority. And you, what exactly do you do? Her tone was sweet but laced with venom. I work in an office, I replied, lowering my gaze. I do a little bit of everything. Paperwork, filing, simple tasks. Veronica exchanged a glance with Franklin. Ah, I see. Administrative work? That's fine. It's honest. All jobs are dignified, right? Of course, I answered. The food arrived. Large plates with tiny, beautifully decorated portions. Veronica cut her steak with precision. This costs $80, she said, but it's worth it. Quality is worth paying for. One can't just eat anything, right? I nodded. Of course, you're right. Marcus tried to shift the topic, talking about work and some projects. Veronica interrupted him. Son, does your mother live alone? Marcus nodded. Yes, she has a small apartment. Veronica looked at me with fake pity. It must be difficult, isn't it? Living alone at your age without much support? And does your salary cover everything? I felt the trap tightening. I replied softly. I manage. I save where I can. I don't need much. Veronica sighed dramatically. Oh, you are so brave. Truly, I admire women who struggle alone. Although, of course, one always wishes to give our children more, to give them a better life. But, oh well, everyone gives what they can. There it was, the subtle but cutting blow. She was saying I hadn't been enough for my son, that I hadn't provided what he deserved, that I was a poor, inadequate mother. Simone stared at her plate. Marcus clenched his fists under the table. And I simply smiled. Yes, you're right. Everyone gives what they can. Veronica went on. We always made sure Simone had the best. She attended the finest schools, traveled the world, learned 4 languages. Now she has an excellent job and earns very well. And when she married Marcus, well, we helped them quite a bit. We gave them money for the down payment on the house. We paid for their honeymoon because that's just who we are. We believe in supporting our children. She looked at me intently. And were you able to help Marcus with anything when they got married? The question hung like a sharp blade. Not much, I replied. I gave them what I could. A small gift. Veronica smiled. How sweet. Every little bit counts, right? The amount doesn't matter. The intention is what's important. Right then, cold rage began to stir inside me. It wasn't explosive. It was controlled, like a river flowing under ice. I kept the timid smile and let Veronica continue talking, because that's what people like her do. They talk. They inflate themselves. They show off. And the more they speak, the more they reveal their own emptiness. Veronica took a sip of her expensive red wine, swirling it expertly. This wine is from an exclusive region in France. It costs $200 a bottle, but when you know quality, you don't skimp. Do you drink wine? Only on special occasions, Maureen, I replied. And usually the cheapest kind. I don't understand much about these things. Veronica smiled condescendingly. Oh, don't worry. Not everyone has a trained palate. That comes with experience, with travel, with education. She and Franklin had visited vineyards across Europe, South America, and California. They were quite knowledgeable. Franklin nodded. It's a hobby we enjoy. Simone is learning too. She has good taste. She inherited it from us. He looked at Simone with pride. Simone gave a weak smile. Thanks, Mom. Veronica turned back to me. And you, what are your hobbies? Anything you enjoy in your free time? I shrugged. I watch television, cook, take walks in the park, simple things. Veronica and Franklin exchanged another meaningful look, heavy with silent judgment. How lovely, Veronica said. Simple things have their charm too. Although, of course, one always aspires to more, right? To see the world, experience new things, grow culturally. But, well, I understand not everyone has those opportunities. I nodded. You're right. Not everyone has those opportunities. The waiter brought dessert, tiny portions that looked like edible art. Veronica ordered the most expensive one. $30 for a piece of cake the size of a cookie. This is delicious, she said after the first bite. It has edible gold on top. See those little golden flakes? It's a detail only the best restaurants offer. I ate my simpler, cheaper dessert in silence. Then Veronica said, You know, I think it's important we talk about something as a family now that we're all here. Her expression turned serious, falsely maternal. Marcus is our son-in-law, and we love him very much. Simone loves him, and we respect that. But as parents, we always want the best for our daughter. Marcus tensed. Mom, I don't think this is the time. Veronica raised her hand. Let me finish. This is important. She looked at me. I understand you did the best you could with Marcus. Raising him alone wasn't easy, and I truly respect you for that. But now Marcus is at a different stage. He's married. He has responsibilities. And Simone, and he deserves stability. Stability? I asked softly. Yes, financial and emotional stability. We've helped a lot and will continue to help. But we also believe it's important that Marcus doesn't have unnecessary burdens. Her tone made it clear she was calling me a burden. His mother. His mother-in-law. Simone stared at her plate as if she wanted to vanish. Marcus's jaw was clenched tight. Burdens? I repeated. Veronica sighed. I don't want to sound harsh, but at your age, living alone on a limited salary, it's natural for Marcus to worry about you, to feel he must take care of you, and that's fine. He's a good son, but we don't want that worry to affect his marriage. Do you understand? Perfectly, Barot, I replied. Veronica smiled. I'm glad you do. That's why we wanted to talk to you. Franklin and I have thought of something. We could help you financially, give you a small monthly allowance, something to let you live more comfortably so Marcus doesn't have to worry so much. Obviously, it would be modest. We can't work miracles, but it would be support. I stayed silent, watching her, waiting. She continued, and in exchange, we would only ask that you respect Marcus and Simone's space, not reach out so often, not pressure them, and give them the freedom to build their life together without interference. How does that sound? There it was, the bribe disguised as charity. They wanted to pay me to disappear from my son's life so I wouldn't be an embarrassment to their precious daughter. Marcus exploded. Mom, that's enough. You don't have to. Veronica cut him off. Marcus, calm down. We're talking like adults. Your mother understands, right? I picked up my napkin, calmly wiped my lips, took a sip of water, and let the silence stretch. Everyone stared at me. Veronica with expectation, Franklin with arrogance, Simone with shame, Marcus with desperation. Then I spoke. My voice was no longer timid or small. It was firm, clear, and cold. That's an interesting offer, Veronica. Truly very generous of you. Veronica smiled triumphantly. I'm glad you see it that way. I nodded. But I have a few questions, just to understand clearly. Of course, ask whatever you like. I leaned forward slightly. How much exactly would you consider a modest monthly allowance? Veronica hesitated. Well, we were thinking about 500, maybe 700, depending. I nodded. I see. $700 a month for me to disappear from my son's life. Veronica frowned. I wouldn't put it like that, but that is exactly how you put it, I said. She shifted in her chair. I don't want you to misunderstand. We just want to help. Of course, I replied. Help? How much was the house down payment you helped with? Veronica nodded proudly. $40,000. Ah, 40,000. How generous. And the honeymoon? $15,000, she said. It was a 3-week trip through Europe. Incredible, I replied. So you've invested about $55,000 in Marcus and Simone? Veronica smiled. Well, when you love your children, you don't hold back. I nodded slowly. You're right. When you love your children, you don't hold back. But tell me something, Veronica. All that investment, all that money, did it buy you anything? Did it buy you respect? Did it buy you real love or just obedience? The atmosphere shifted. Veronica stopped smiling. Excuse me. My tone sharpened. You've spent the entire night talking about money. How much things cost, how much you spent, how much you have. But you haven't asked even once how I am. If I'm happy, if something hurts me, or if I need company. You've only calculated my worth, and apparently I'm worth $700 a month. Veronica paled. I didn't. Yes, you did, I interrupted. Since I arrived, you've been measuring my value with your wallet. And do you know what I discovered, Veronica? The people who talk only about money are the ones who understand its true value the least. Franklin intervened. I think you're misinterpreting my wife's intentions. I looked at him directly. And what are her intentions? To pity me? To humiliate me throughout dinner? To offer me alms so I would vanish? Franklin opened his mouth but said nothing. Marcus was pale. Mom, please. No, Marcus, I'm done being quiet. I placed the napkin on the table and leaned back. There was no more shrinking in my posture. I looked Veronica straight in the eyes. She held my gaze for a second, then looked away, uncomfortable. Something had changed, and everyone felt it. Veronica, you said something interesting earlier. You said you admire women who struggle alone, who are brave. Veronica nodded slowly. Yes, I did. Then let me ask you, have you ever struggled alone? Have you ever worked without your husband backing you? Have you ever built something with your own 2 hands, without your family's money? Veronica stammered. I have my own achievements. Like what? I asked with genuine curiosity. Tell me. She adjusted her hair. I manage our investments. I oversee properties. I make important decisions in our businesses. I nodded. Businesses your husband built, properties you bought together, investments made with the money he generated? Or am I wrong? Franklin intervened, annoyed. That's not fair. My wife works just as hard as I do. Of course, I replied calmly. I don't doubt she works. But there's a difference between managing money that already exists and creating it from scratch. Between overseeing an empire you inherited and building it brick by brick. Don't you think? Veronica pressed her lips together. I don't know where you're going with this. Let me explain, I said. 40 years ago, I was 23 years old. I was a secretary in a small company, earning minimum wage. I lived in a rented room and ate the cheapest food I could find. And I was completely alone. Marcus stared at me. I had never shared these details with him before. I continued. One day I got pregnant. The father disappeared. My family turned their backs on me. I had to decide whether to keep going or give up. I chose to keep going. I worked until the last day of my pregnancy. I returned to work 2 weeks after Marcus was born. A neighbor watched him during the day. I worked 12-hour days. No one spoke. I took a sip of water. I didn't stay a secretary. I studied at night. I took courses. I learned English at the public library. I learned accounting, finance, and administration. I became an expert in things no one taught me, all on my own, while raising a child alone, while paying rent, food, medicine, and clothes. Veronica stared at her plate. Her arrogance was beginning to crack. And you know what happened, Veronica? I climbed step by step, from secretary to assistant, from assistant to coordinator, from coordinator to manager, from manager to director. It took me 20 years of relentless work and sacrifices you can't even imagine, but I did it. And do you know how much I earn now? Veronica shook her head. $40,000 a month, I said. The silence was absolute, as if the universe had hit pause. Marcus dropped his fork. Simone's eyes widened. Franklin frowned in disbelief. Veronica froze, her mouth slightly open. $40,000 every month for nearly 20 years, I repeated. That's almost $10 million in gross income over my career, not counting investments, bonuses, or company stock. Veronica blinked repeatedly. No, I don't understand. You earn $40,000 a month? That's right, I replied calmly. I am the regional director of operations for a multinational corporation. I oversee 5 countries. I manage budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars. I make decisions that affect more than 10,000 employees. I sign contracts you couldn't read without lawyers, and I do it every day. Marcus was pale. Mom, why did you never tell me? I looked at him tenderly. Because you didn't need to know, son. Because I wanted you to grow up valuing effort, not money. Because I wanted you to become a person, not an heir. Because money corrupts, and I wasn't going to let it corrupt you. But then, Simone whispered, why do you live in that small apartment? Why do you wear simple clothes? Why don't you drive a luxury car? I smiled. Because I don't need to impress anyone. Because true wealth isn't shown off. Because I learned that the more you have, the less you need to prove it. I looked at Veronica. That's why I came dressed like this tonight. That's why I pretended to be poor. That's why I acted like a broken, naive woman. I wanted to see how you would treat me if you thought I had nothing. I wanted to see your true colors. And boy, did I see them perfectly, Veronica. Veronica turned red with shame, rage, and humiliation. This is ridiculous. If you earned so much money, we would know. Marcus would know. Why would he believe you are poor? Because I let him, I replied. Because I never talked about my job. Because I live simply. Because the money I earn, I invest and save and multiply. I don't spend it on flashy jewelry or showing off in expensive restaurants. Franklin cleared his throat. Even so, this doesn't change the fact that you were rude and misinterpreted our intentions. Really? I looked at him steadily. I misinterpreted when you called me a burden to Marcus? When you offered to pay me $700 to disappear from his life? When you made every condescending comment about my clothes, my job, my life? Neither Franklin nor Veronica answered. I stood up. Everyone looked at me. Let me tell you something no one has apparently ever told you. Money does not buy class. It does not buy real education. It does not buy empathy. You have money, perhaps a lot, but you don't have an ounce of what truly matters. Veronica stood up, furious. And you do? You who lied and deceived us and made us look like fools? I didn't make you look like fools, I replied coldly. You took care of that all on your own. I simply gave you the opportunity to show who you really are, and you did it magnificently. Simone had tears in her eyes. Mother-in-law, I didn't know. I know, I interrupted. You didn't know, but your parents knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were humiliating me, and they enjoyed it. Until they discovered that the poor woman they scorned has more money than they do. And now they don't know what to do with that information. Veronica trembled. You have no right. I have every right, I replied, because I am your son-in-law's mother. Because I deserve respect. Not because of my money or my job, but because I am a human being. Something you forgot throughout this entire dinner. Marcus stood up. Mom, please, let's go. Not yet, son. I'm not finished. I looked at Veronica one last time. You offered to help me with $700 a month? Let me make you a counteroffer. I will give you $1 million right now if you can prove to me that you ever treated someone kindly who didn't have money. Veronica opened her mouth, closed it, and said nothing. Exactly, Arnie said. You can't. Because to you, people are only worth what they have in the bank. And that is the difference between you and me. I built wealth. You just spend it. I earned respect. You buy it. I have dignity. You have bank accounts. I picked up my old canvas tote, pulled out a black platinum credit card, and dropped it on the table in front of Veronica. This is my corporate card. Unlimited limit. Pay for the entire dinner with a generous tip. Consider it a gift from a broke and naive mother. Veronica looked at the card as if it were poisonous. It was black and shiny, with my name engraved in silver, Alara Sterling, Regional Director. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked it up. She turned it over, then looked at me. The superior shine in her eyes was gone. Now there was something else, fear. I don't need your money, she said, her voice breaking. I know, I replied. But I didn't need your pity either. And yet you offered it to me throughout the entire dinner. So take it as a gesture of courtesy or good manners. Something you clearly didn't learn despite all your travels through Europe.